What's one old thing pre-2000s you want to bring back to now? Classic Cartoon Network. I also want to go back to 90s when I was a kid. My lack of back pain, oof. Fucking stupid human body, having evolved for 4 million years to walk upright but didn't bother to give us a spine capable of handling decades of bipedalism. Fun fast food structures. They've turned all but one McDonald's in my town into some industrial grade building. The same for all Pizza Huts and a few other places. Fast food restaurants are trying to get away from that fast food cheap look of the 80s and 90s. They started this process in the mid 2000s. Also, the reason why buildings are looking more industrial-like is because modern design is making it so. Buildings require less maintenance and waste less energy heating and cooling. The downside is that everything looks dull and boring. Being unavailable. I hate being on call 24/7. You used to be able to be out getting groceries or on walk or whatever, and there was no urgency to answer to anyone. Now, people are offended if you don't immediately respond to a text or a call, especially since they added the feature where it lets them know you read it. So let them be offended, might do them some good. Buying a house for approximately double your yearly salary. Comfortable airline seating. Dressing like you don't give a shit. Not expecting to be reachable at all when on vacation. Corded phones. It's really hard to strangle someone with a cell phone. Angrily pressing end call isn't nearly as fulfilling as slamming the phone receiver down too. Hard but never impossible. Fucking hair metal. Also my fucking hair. Unvisited locations. Man lived in 1509. When I was 8 years old, my parents bought a fixer-upper starter home for 55 grand. This was in 1997. I make a bit over 40k a year and I can barely afford to rent a hole in the wall with busted plumbing on my own. I want cars to look pointy instead of rounded again. I don't care if the aerodynamics are better. It's rare that I drive over 70 miles per hour and I want something that looks cool like a 1960s and 1970s sports car. Conversations. As someone in their late 20s, I'm guilty of being on my phone a lot too. But if we're out together or something, can we just talk? Like people? I don't want to sound like an old man, but I miss long conversations while passing a joint back and forth and just listening to each other. No Kardashians. I'm 55 now, and the thing I think about my kids are they can't relax. When I was a kid in the UK, we only had one TV in our whole house, and it was a treat to see the news every night. And it was so fun, and we'd then go to school the next day and talk about it. But nowadays kids can't relax, they're always on their phones, and I know it's because there's nothing to do and their whole lives are taken over by it. But when I was a kid, me and my mates would go and sit in a field and just chill, nothing illegal, no sex, no drugs, no phones, sometimes a radio if we could convince our moms to let us. And our moms won't always be pestering us every 5 minutes. We would get a time to be home by. If we weren't, she would lock the doors and we would sleep in the porch or something like that, because it's the 70s and 80s. It was a different time. We would have to be back sometimes by the time the street lights turned on. But in my old days, I just think it's ridiculous to think that my kids are just lifeless. They just sit there all day and they're so depressed about everything. It just looks at this celebrity and everything is instant. We would have to read a magazine and get the ideas of what hair to do, then ride our bikes down the shop because our parents couldn't afford a car, and that was the norm back then. Nowadays, if a parent couldn't afford a car, which I really don't understand how they do, to be fair, they get frowned upon. That's all that I want to say. Be safe, make good choices. I miss when we didn't all have our faces in our phones. The technology is extremely useful, but I miss being a kid and using our crazy imaginations and never needing a phone or iPad to be entertained. When nobody I knew had a cell phone, people paid a lot more attention to each other. It's just so easy now to be in a room full of people and everyone's ignoring each other. Even kids do it. I miss the human connection, I guess. Gas less than $1 per gallon. Many comments here are 24/7 lifestyle without cell phone and social media. I'm retired now and it took me about 1 year to get my mind to slow down. Relax, not have a list to do. You working folks have so much daily stress in life. I feel bad for everyone. It's not a good culture. At least the Europeans take August off, while many Americans don't take their allotted vacation time. Make time for you and your loved ones. Nothing. Oh, I had a great time, I partied and shagged my way through the whole decade, but I'm sure the 20-year-olds of today will look back at now with such fondness. The past was never really better than now, we were just younger and knew how to have fun. Meeting someone at the gate when their flight landed. I loved the growing up, but my kids never got to experience it. There was something magical about seeing that person you were waiting and walk out. The feeling of going to Blockbuster on a Friday night and getting 2 new releases in a game that would define your weekend. Worst feeling in the world when you would show up to a Blockbuster and they'd be all out of the movie that you wanted. Going to the video store, walking around for a good hour or more talking with strangers about their respective tastes and getting good advice about something to watch. So that was more of a social happening than specifically going out just to get a movie to watch. Automats, those restaurants where food is all in little cubicles and you'd stick a coin in to open it and get the food out. You could do that now, but with debit cards. The hope ahead for my country's was really future. I've gone from my country has potential to my country sucks due to outdated institutions, but there are plenty of others that can and will lead us. To there are fundamental flaws not only with human nature but with the entire setup of the universe that will limit how benevolent, prosperous or large a civilization can be. Traveling without the internet, when you need to carry a map with you and know where you're going, it was an adventure. Less ease and accessibility of contact. Social media these days, phones, etc. We can instantly talk to people on the other side of the world. We know what everyone's doing, where they are, etc. We post about it, we humble brag. I know the internet was around pre-2000, but I miss the relative anonymity and privacy you could have. I know I'm using social media to talk about this, it's not all negative and it's useful, but I feel social shit was more exciting when you had to wait for it. My flat stomach. The feeling that the year 2000 will be a futuristic utopia with flying cars and robots doing all the work while you just relax. The everlasting optimism of the 90s leading up to the year 2000s in the US was an amazing time. Yeah, there were troubles around the world, but it seemed to be getting better, and technology growing at unbelievable pace with things we couldn't even imagine. Then 9/11 and the world has been terrible since. It wasn't an 11-year party that the world will most likely not experience ever again. The world of willful ignorance is no more. You will be shown everything at all times and an opinion will be expected from you on all viewpoints.